What's up everybody? In this video, I'm going to be sharing my full thoughts on Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I covered this game last week after playing for a few hours, just talking about my initial thoughts and comparing how it all felt to the classic films, which are some of my all-time favorites. I've since completed the game, as well as gone through a lot of the side content. And now it's time to go into complete detail of what I discussed in that last video, as well as dive into what I thought of the story. I'll give a warning when I'm ready to start discussing things that are best experienced going in blind. But without further ado, let's get started. So Indiana Jones and the Great Circle was developed by Machine Games. I played a couple other games they made in the past, which were the two modern Wolfenstein games, The New Order and The New Colossus, a couple of first-person shooters taking place in an alternate World War II. Now they've been tasked with a AAA game based on a licensed movie property, which is something you don't see a whole lot of nowadays in the age of high-budget video games rivaling the production quality of those movies. And this game is a prime example of that. A large-scale cinematic adventure that's really enjoyable as both a video game fan and an Indiana Jones movie fan. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of cool aspects about this game, both minor and major, that make it one of the most cinematic games I've played in some time. Like with all good movies, there's also good performances, and the performances here are absolutely perfect. I really glazed Troy Baker in my last video about this game, but goddammit, I'm gonna do it again because I just can't get over how good of a job he did here. I kept having to remind myself that he's not actually Harrison Ford. He's that spot on. Tony Todd was also in this game, which I didn't realize it was him until pretty late in the game when he started getting more screen time. Overall, the voice acting and motion capture in this game was absolutely top-notch. So now onto the gameplay aspects, and there's quite a few things to talk about. Mostly good things, with just a couple of minor flaws. To sum it up generally, it came to me just how much the developers made what you're doing in the gameplay reflect what Indy does in the movies. He sneaks around, puts on disguises, infiltrates places he's not supposed to be, whether it's restricted areas full of Nazis or in old tombs full of booby traps, and occasionally gets into scraps with bad guys. The melee combat feels really good, by the way. It never got old for me. The punching is met with that big cinematic punching sound that you hear in all the old movies. You can use the left and right triggers to throw knuckle sandwiches at your foes, or just pick up one of the many improvised weapons that are lying around all over the place and beat their ass with it. The improvised weapons are also really useful for instant stealth takedowns. You can pick up anything from pipes, shovels, batons, and sledgehammers to even wackier things like cast iron pans, guitars, and even fly swatters. They usually break after a couple of hits, but they really are all over the place, so it's not much of a problem. My main problem with the combat, though, was the gunplay. The guns feel kinda shoehorned into the combat, and they're not very practical. Because when you're up against one or two guys, you can just easily beat them up anyway, and if you shoot at a whole group of people, then they just get out their guns and blast you. It's not a huge deal though, because you can still make it through most of the game without having to shoot. And then of course, there's the whip. Which obviously you're gonna use Indy's most iconic asset in a video game where you play as him. And it's about as versatile as you'd expect. You're always using it to swing over gaps, climb ledges, and pull things out of reach. In combat, you can use it to stun enemies or make them drop their weapons, which is always useful. And then there's stealth. A lot of stealth. And it's pretty good. But the enemy AI is some of the most oblivious I've seen in some time, almost like they made it really easy to outsmart these goons on purpose. Looking past the enemy AI, however, the presentation of the stealth sections was very good, even if the mechanics of it are pretty basic. You sneak around and avoid filling up detection meters like usual, but you can also find disguises to put on to be able to walk around freely. And walking into an enemy's line of sight comes with this cool little musical cue, which is an example of what I mentioned earlier about how all the little touches they made make the whole thing feel very cinematic. So in between all the ass beating and all the other stuff I mentioned, you're also going deep underground into tombs very frequently, making your way through booby traps and environmental puzzles to reach a coveted artifact. And the puzzles here were pretty well done. There were a few here and there that made me feel kind of dumb, but I never got the feeling that they were poorly designed, which is great. And the level design in general was really good. While it is a linear story, the game's levels are made up of what feel like mini open worlds. There are places you stop by during Indy's adventure to go through main missions, as well as pick up side quests, discover secret puzzles, and find collectibles like medicine bottles to upgrade your health. And the game definitely incentivizes you to wander around and do all these things, because everything you do gives you the game's main currency, adventure points, which you spend by reading books that include permanent upgrades, which are also scattered around the world. And I've gotta say, the big main levels in this game look amazing. Pretty early in the game, you get sent to an amazing, absolutely sprawling recreation of Vatican City, which when I first started exploring this area, it felt a little bit too twisty and turny for me personally, but there's an impressive amount of verticality to it, and you can actually go inside of most places, which was awesome. They included a lot of interior work, which is something you don't see in a lot of games. The journey also takes you to the Pyramids of Giza, which was my favorite location by far, as well as a swamp village in deep Southeast Asia where you can actually hop in a motorboat and traverse the map that way, which was pretty cool. So the gameplay overall is pretty rock solid. If you have a thirst that needs quenched for a fun-to-play, partially linear action-adventure story game, look no further. Speaking of the story here, how does it stack up against Indy's best adventures? At this point in the video, I'm going to discuss minor spoilers involving the game's main story, so if you want to go in completely blind, I recommend clicking off and coming back another time. Long story short, if this game was translated to a film, I can say with confidence that this is the best Indiana Jones story since The Last Crusade. The original films will always be better, but The Great Circle is definitely a banger.
They got us! Keep the plane straight or I can't shoot!
So it takes place in 1937, which is in between the first and third films, and the gist here is that after Indy's museum is broken into and an artifact is stolen, he sets out to retrieve it, which ropes him into a globe-trotting race against Nazis to a mysterious source of power that can't fall into the wrong hands. And if any of that sounds familiar, then yeah, that's what Indy's all about. The man fights 1930s Nazis. So you get taken on an epic quest around all the locations I mentioned earlier, as well as a couple others, with a new companion named Gina. And Gina is this Italian journalist who's looking for someone who's also involved with the Great Circle, and this puts her on the same path as Indy, so they work together pretty much the whole story. She has her own fleshed out storyline here, and it's actually pretty meaningful to the overall narrative, which is more than I can say for a lot of the female companions in the movies. All the new characters, for the most part, bring something unique to the story, including Gina and Locus, who's played by the late great Tony Todd. But I wanted to give a special shout out to the main villain here, this Nazi archaeologist named Emmerich Voss. He is the most fun villain I have ever seen in this series by far. He stole every moment he was on screen. He was really great. And the bits of humor that the movies were always really good at is absolutely on point here. Like, there were some genuinely funny jokes here that I still think about.
You have no purpose. What you have is your stupid American cartoons. Choo-choo, choo-choo, ha 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 ha.
Also, the game opens with a moment that I mentioned was absolutely brilliant in my review in progress. It was a recreation of the first movie's opening scene, pretty much verbatim. And of course, Troy Baker took this opportunity to flex how similar he managed to sound to Harrison
Throw me
Ford.
the idol, I throw you the whip. Give me the whip. Adios, senor. Give me the whip.
Adios, senor.
So, what's my overall consensus? This feels like the newest big cinematic license game we all needed. The surprising depth to the gameplay and the big open level design makes the experience feel really full. The story's a lot of fun, maybe not as instantly iconic as any of the old movies, but anyone craving the next great Indiana Jones adventure is gonna eat well here. I am giving Indiana Jones and the Great Circle an 8.5. If you made it to the end of this video, thanks a bunch, it means the world to me. So hit the like button if you enjoyed what you saw, and hit subscribe if you haven't already. Peace out, everybody.